breaking down Keith's latest mock draft with the Draft Network, and I'm going to tell you why the Los Angeles Chargers getting Shamar Stewart is one of my favorite fits of this mock. We'll talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. As always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every As Keith dropped the new mock on Monday, and now that he's back, guys, we got to talk about it. We're going to get into the favorite draft picks of this mock. One of my favorites, Shamar Stewart to the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to talk about that. Then the most interesting picks in this draft, he's got one inside the top 15 that I haven't seen before. We're going to talk about that one. And then the most underrated picks, the ones that you kind of look over, then you fast forward 2 years later, like, man, that was a steal. We're going to get into that. So let's talk about it. Keith, my favorite pick of your mock, and this was a landing spot I haven't seen before, was at pick 22, the Los Angeles Chargers taking Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. And this is a position of need, right? You released Joey Bosa, brought back Khalil Mack for another year. Then they have Bud Dupree there. They use our guy that we talked about, what was it, 2 drafts ago, right? The 2023 draft, Tuli Pelotu. You know what I mean? Out of USC, a guy we were really high on. They kind of move him around in that front. I think pairing Shamar Stewart with a guy like Khalil Mack to tutor him, who Khalil knows what it's like to be that high profile, like tools he got. Now, granted, Khalil Mack had more production at, I believe, the University of Buffalo when he came out than, Shamar Stewart, but allowing him to mentor him, tutor him, teach him the game in terms of, hey, this is how you study these offensive tackles. This is how you really improve your hand usage, getting them with the right trainer, like working with them in the offseason. I think this would be a great fit for them because they need to have that guy to pass that torch to. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, if they don't go edge at least early in the draft, within the first 2 to 3 rounds, they may not have that guy to pass that torch to. I think that Shamar Stewart could be in for a good career after learning from a guy like Khalil Mack.
Yeah, DP, and that's why I did it, right? Because I mean, it's like, let's state the obvious, right? With Shamar Stewart, is that has all the physical tools, but we haven't seen him do it before, right? I think through his entire career, we're sitting at 4.5 sacks. That is extremely alarming, right? At the end of the day. But if you believe in the physical tools, why not pair him up with a savvy veteran, right? A guy like Khalil Mack, who's been there, done that, came from a small school, right? He was a high draft pick, but he still came from a small school. So he understands having question marks about if you can get the job done or not on the next level. So I just thought that was a fair pairing, and I think that it's a fair slot for Shamar Stewart. I think you talk about drafting a guy that only had 4.5 sacks in the top 5. That's really risky business. Top 10 is really risky business, right? But sitting towards the back end of the first round, that's where you draft those guys that have high-level physical traits. Maybe for whatever reason they wasn't able to produce in college, but if you pair them up with a savvy veteran, they can get the job done.
Yeah, him having Khalil Mack, also having Bud Dupree, a guy that has had a good career, you know what I mean, since being drafted. Know him as well, knowing how to use his ability, physical tools, especially when he was younger in his prime, to get after the quarterback. Speed, power, whatever he had in his back, he knew how to get to the quarterback, especially in Pittsburgh, things of that nature. So having both of those guys and then watching the growth and the impact that Tuli's had when he's been able to rush and get after the quarterback. Yeah, I think Shamar Stewart can come into a situation where the pressure isn't on. You go 8 to Carolina, you're expected to be the guy, the dude for that team and for that defense. Hey, it's 3rd and 10. We got to get the Derek Carr. We got to get the Michael Penix. You got to get the Baker Mayfield. If you go 8, the Panther fans are looking at you on 3rd and 10, game on the line. Shamar, get back there. And if you aren't doing that, then that pressure, it can burst some pipes early in terms of the confidence of young men. I want to see him in a good situation, Keith. But when you look at your own mock, what was one of your what is your favorite pick from your own first round mock that you just released on Monday with the draft?
Man, this is tough. Both of them are in the middle, right? And I'm hoping that I'm not stealing one of your most interesting picks. I hope that I'm not stealing one.
I'm pretty sure you're going to.
I'm gonna go with Ashton Jeanty to the Cincinnati Bengals. As the most as my favorite draft pick, and here's why. I don't want to say this because they come from the same school, right? But I want to look at Ashton Jeanty in the Doug Martin light. I think that, like, you're talking about, and just I think the career trajectory, right, and what their physical tools are, because I don't think Doug Martin, if I remember, I don't think he was a blazer neither, right? As far as 40 time, I could look that up, but just looking at his stats throughout his career, multiple 1,000-yard rushing years, things like that. He battled a couple injuries, but there were times and flashes and moments, right, where Doug Martin was towards, he was a top 10, top 5-ish back in the NFL when he was healthy. So I look at it from that perspective of, I think Ashton Jeanty can be that. Now, do I think Ashton Jeanty is like a top 10 elite level? Because you're talking about drafting those guys, that's your, like you say, your Saquon Barkley's, your Bijan Robinsons, your Jahmyr Gibbs, your Todd Gurley's, right? I don't know if he checks all the boxes for me to put him there yet, but he's in the box of really doggone good, and I like him, right? And I think he goes to the Cincinnati Bengals, and you're talking about balance, right? That is the balance. Like, because I dare you to put 8 in the box to try to stop Ashton Jeanty with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the outside. That would be a problem for you, right? And then that gives them the opportunity, if the Cincinnati Bengals want to go 11 personnel or 10 personnel, right? They just have one running back and go full wide. Guess what? That spreads the box even thinner, right? Now you might have only 5 or 6 in the box, and then Ashton Jeanty gets those holes, and he can run that inside zone, outside zone, be able to jump cut. And if you put him in more situations in space where it's him one-on-one with a defender, then you like that opportunity of him beating the linebacker, right? So that's why it was my, I guess, favorite pick, because I think this one rounds the Bengals out, but it's probably the best situation for Ashton Jeanty also.
Yeah, to your point about Doug Martin, he ran a 4.55 at the combine, I believe, when he came out. I just Googled it. So he wasn't the burner. That wasn't part of his game. Of course, I think Ashton Jeanty is probably faster than him. I think Ashton Jeanty, if he ran, he would probably crack 4. He would have been under 4.5. I think he would hit like 4.47, 4.48 somewhere in there.
I'd have probably put him right at 4.5 flat. I don't think he's a 4.55 guy. I probably would have put him right at 4.5 flat, which is good time for a running back. It's like not like, you're slow. Like, that's a good time for a running back.
And I doubt he was even actually, most of these kids getting to the combine, pro day circuit, they work with a track coach. I doubt he was even working one. He was like, I'm not even running, so I don't need to do it. I think getting that get off and things like that. I think so. I'll talk about, like, with that. The reason why that's was my most interesting pick, because from what I've never seen it, I do love it for Ashton Jeanty, because, like you said, you can't load the box. Like, you just can't. You know what I mean? Like, you got T. Higgins, you got Jamar Chase, you got Andre Yoshivas, you got, I think, Mike Gesicki's at tight end, like Joe Burrow back there. You can't like load the box to stop Jeanty. And I think, me, my whole thing with him is just like, I want to put all my running backs in positions where, number one, their plays matter. And, you're talking about, like, people that say running backs don't matter. They don't matter until they're on a good team and you can't stop them. Then they matter. That's what I want for these running backs. Jeanty, Hampton, no matter whoever it is, I want them on a good team where their carries, their impact leads to winning games. And it's not just wasted carries on a terrible team. The only thing with Cincinnati is they need interior offensive line and defense. And I saw, because I remember our guy over at Locked On Bengals, James Rappian, he was having a discussion with some Bengal fans on the top. He was like, we should probably look at running back on day 2 of the draft. They were like, absolutely not. He was like, we got Chase Brown, but I mean, this running back class, why don't you draft a guy?
I guess that's how I feel, right? And if he falls to you, I'm not saying reach, right, and jump up, because the Cincinnati Bengals do have a lot of holes. And that's why when I did it, I liked it, but I'm like, I could go edge rusher, I could go corner, I can go safety, I can go, like it was, I could go offensive line, but I was like, if you have a chance to get this, get Ashton Jeanty in this slot, it's like, you know what? It's almost like with the Jamar Chase situation, right? Like, you had Jamar Chase, or you could have went Penei Sewell, and you're like, hey, I think the Jamar Chase, like, this guy is this doggone good. And don't get me wrong, Penal Sewell has been elite too, but that Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection has probably been the best in the NFL.
I think, if you ask, like, and Bengal fans, they agree with you wholeheartedly. That was always a dichotomy. Like, well, you should have went, tackle, but Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow already had that connection. It made the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
It helps both of them hit the runway full speed. This time around, they probably say, let's go ahead and protect him so we don't have to worry about losing our quarterback and hoping Jake Browning can come in and keep and right the ship, which I don't even think he's on the roster anymore. I can't remember. But I think if Gray Zabel's there, and I know it's not a sexy pick, I would say get that interior offensive look. I think that's where they're going to probably go. I don't see this team improving the defense. Honestly, I don't think they care. I think they want to keep Trey Hendrickson and be like, let's make sure we protect Joe, and then we're good. If we got to win 35-38, we believe Joe Burrow can get the 38. Like, we're fine. It's a very risky situation with Lamar Jackson in your division. But if this happened, and I think Jenty is like, shout out to all the fantasy players, stock up, for fantasy, man, because Jenty about to kill it over there. So that's why it was one of my most interesting picks. I'm like, man, you definitely could have improved the offensive line. I think Tyler Booker already off the board?
DP, and we'll have a conversation about the offensive line too. I have to be honest, and I guess this is perfect podcast to say it, right? I'm not extremely high on the offensive line class either. Like, I think that's another thing for me. I think there's a lot of good guys. I don't know if I see a lot of great ones like we've seen in the past couple years, right? So I like them, I just don't love them too, and I think that's probably where it bows to. But DP, we got to transition, baby. We got to talk about coming up next. We are having a discussion on the most interesting picks, right? Like, where you kind of tilt your head to the left, tilt your head to the right, you kind of squint a little bit, and you say, that's interesting, right? We're gonna talk about those picks from my mock draft coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 bonus bets today. The most interesting picks in Keith's latest mock draft over with the Draft Network. You can go check out all 32 picks at thedraftnetwork.com. For me, Keith, originally was Ashton Jeanty, but I'm going to go to another team inside the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens getting the Mecca Ebuka. And this is an interesting spot to me because it's like they need a wide receiver. And like you got Bateman, you got Zay. I believe they're keeping Mark Andrews. Like, despite the playoff thing against Buffalo, Mark Andrews.
Listen, your best player miss a shot or two, you don't cut him, right? Like, you rely on what he's done over the past.
Yeah, I think they're gonna go. Probably see a lot of 12 for him, and I think that they need to really give the ball to Isaiah Likely as tight end one now because he gives you more after the catch. He's more secure handed, things of that nature, and then let those two be your two big body guys on the field. Putting a Mecca Ebuka in this offense is interesting. It's like what, and you tell me what your thought process is. Where is he playing for you in this situation? Because they don't have like a true X. Like Bateman's like a Z. Flowers does move around a lot, but like you see, I think his best ball, like when they really get him the ball, is out of the slot where he gets that two-way go, work the middle of the field, things of that nature. With them needing probably a more traditional big body X, where will you put a Mecca in this offense or in terms of wide receiver alignment? I think that's the interesting part. I think his talent wise, I think he helps them. It's just all about finding the right fit to where all of those guys can be on the field at the same time.
DP, I think this is where we're going to differ. I think I'm about to say something that you're going to disagree with, but I'm about to say it. I put him wherever you're supposed to put Rashad Bateman. That's why I'm rolling that, DP. Listen, and this is it's not a direct shot, right, at Rashad Bateman, but I have to be completely honest. If I'm the general manager, I drafted Rashad Bateman. That was 5 years ago going on, right? That was
Feels like it, yeah.
2021, I believe. Yeah, it's been
minute.
some years. And if I start to look at, and I drafted him in the first round to be my number one wide receiver, right? And Baltimore Ravens fans and even NFL fans that have somewhat paid attention to the Baltimore Ravens.
2021.
Yeah, 2021, right?
draft.
That was the same year as Terrace Marshall, right? Terrace Marshall is on his, you see what I'm saying? Like on this, and we have to start thinking about that as far as the guys that have produced and haven't produced. That was right after Jalen Reagor, right? So some of these wide receivers that haven't produced, I can't continue to put my franchise along with my franchise quarterback in position to depend on something that hasn't produced yet. And you're talking about having 4 or 5 years to come and produce. And it might just be the simple situation, DP, that Rashad Bateman is just not a number one right now. And that's okay. That I'm not mad with Rashad, right? You have him on a pretty team-friendly deal. It's just that I can't count on you. If people are doubling Zay Flowers, I need another guy to go to. I need another wide receiver. So because you even seen for that moment, DP, when Odell Beckham was there, right? Outside of injuries, he kind of almost stepped up as the number 1 to 2, right? In that situation. So that's why I drafted Mecca Ebuka. Just because I probably slide Rashad Bateman down the pecking order, just because I say, listen, man, you had quite a few years to step up as the number one. I know injuries was a part of that, but even when healthy, it's been flashes. I kind of almost put him in the same bucket. Remember those kind of Aaron Rodgers years where it was like he kind of had Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You had one of the St. Brown brothers, and it was like, where it was just like sparingly somebody would do something, right? But nobody ever stepped up to be the number one guy. And so that's why I say that, just to kind of explain it in full context. I put Mecca in that kind of, I want to walk in a training camp with Zay Flowers, Mecca Ebuka battling for number one. Zay is able to do what he's able to do, and then Mecca is the bigger body wide receiver, and then maybe I push Rashad Bateman to wide receiver 3, which I'm much more comfortable with that situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've said on this pod, like, the injuries, the lack of connection over his career with Lamar. I think 2024 was clearly his best year. 45 receptions, 756 yards. He averaged close to 17 yards per catch and 9 touchdowns. So it was like, that was good, but that wasn't first round good. You know what I mean? When we draft the first round, you're expecting no less than 1,000, 1,100 yards, and
especially with us playing 17 games, throwing the football all the time, things like that.
I think Lamar threw for over 4,000 yards. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
he threw for over 4,000.
So where did the other 3,000 go? Right?
Yeah, with other 3,300 yards with, you know what I mean. So I'm with you on that, man. I like now when you break it down. No, I'm with that, because I feel like Zay is going to be that one for them. Like they love getting him the ball and what he can do. A Mecca playing that Z spot, being that 2. Physical, strong catch guy who can make plays after the catch. A really good route runner. I think that's the other thing. Being on time, like synced up with the drop of Lamar Jackson. Hey, postseason, you need a guy that can get open against man and get open quickly. And I look at a Mecca Ebuka like that. I think people. I feel like people are underrating a Mecca Ebuka at this point. And I really feel like this guy could come in. And given the targets, can have the type of year we saw JSN finally start having last year, you know what I mean, with the Seattle Seahawks, which is why we released Tyler Lockett. We traded DK Metcalf because you're going to be the number one. I think Mecca Ebuka could do the same thing. So in terms of skill set and route running, and I think he's faster than people expect him to be and whatnot. He's a good player. So I think knocking Rashad Bateman down, I think that's just where it comes down to is, you haven't been consistent, big dog, and that's just the nature of the game, Keith. But talk to me when you look at the draft. What was because you made the picks. What was the pick that you just look like, man, this is an interesting pick I made?
DP, this is what I'm gonna go ahead and do. We're gonna transition right now because you laid up the perfect alley-oop for me, right? You talked about wide receivers and you talked about the Seattle Seahawks. My favorite pick is a wide receiver that went to Seattle, and we're gonna talk about that coming up next.
You probably heard of Chewy, They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet health care, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Keith, in your latest mock draft with the Draft Network, you said the Seattle Seahawks getting a wide receiver was your favorite, most interesting pick of the draft at pick 18. That was Matthew Golden out of Texas. Talk to the people. Why was that one of your favorite and most interesting picks of your mock?
Yeah, so I would. I know this is a mock draft, right? But sometimes things fall, right? And how the board fell this time, Matthew Golden went at pick 18, right? I'll have him ranked as a higher prospect than that. My top 50 board drops. But I'll say this, that him with the Seattle Seahawks, they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? Which coming out of college, we knew JSN is not a burner, right? That's not his thing. They signed Cooper Kupp, right? Once the Rams let him go, they signed Cooper Kupp. You have Sam Darnold there. You add a blazer like Matthew Golden to this conversation, to this mix, I think it's a perfectly balanced roster now. And it almost reminds me of when the Rams remember the Rams, I believe they had this combination of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, right? Or Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Odell Beckham, right? When they had the Super Bowl run. I think you have that trio of wide receivers. Cooper Kupp is the savvy veteran, right? Now you have Jackson Smith and Jigba entering, I'll say, the experienced role, right? He's going on year 3, I believe. Year three in his system, which, it's kind of been up and down, right, as far as production. But then now you add in the young guy, right? Matthew Golden, the blazer, the instincts, the, route running, all of these different things that you have a well-rounded receiver core for Sam Darnold to be able to take off. Like, because we only know Sam Darnold, and I give Sam Darnold all the credit for mentally staying in the game over the past few years, right, after being beat up and, everything being said about you. But the truth of the matter is that the Seattle Seahawks signed Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was best in Minnesota. Minnesota has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, right? So if I want some of the same results, I'm trying to surround him with similar pieces.
Well, I like that. And I think, when you look at what JSN did last year, 100 catches, 100 catches, 1,130 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Again, he gave them a reason to say, DK, we don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yep.
Tyler Lockett, thank you for your services, but you're a little bit older and longer in the tooth. I think pairing Matthew Golden, then you bring in Cooper Kupp. Matthew Golden, bringing that speed element, like you said. This is a team that also going to run the ball, so you can try to get some cover 1, some single high, some cover 3 looks where you got that strong safety in the box, because you still got to deal with Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. Like, they're not going to just throw the ball all. Like, Mike McDonald is not doing that. Like, he came from Baltimore. Like, no, we're going to punch you in the mouth. This is a division that's kind of, it's not black and blue like the AFC North, but the NFC West, all 4 teams will run the rock. Like, the Seattle will run the rock. The Rams, the Niners, and Cardinals.
Yeah, over the past 15 years, you can probably say in the NFC East, it's been the most physical division in the NFC, right? When you talk about you go back to the days of, even before Fred Warner, but the Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowmans and the Richard Shermans and the Bobby Wagners.
It was very physical.
Bernard
Davis,
playing a physical brand of football for some years now.
So I like it. I think, knowing that you're going to run the ball, you want to keep defenses on this for Sam Darnold, give him those favorable looks post-snap. and having the speed of Matthew Golden and the movement ability to where you can give him that you see now, like the NFL supposedly was going to call flags on them, but they haven't. Where the guys running in full in pre-snap motion runs, it's almost like the CFL at that point.
Oh,
you get that head start, you're supposed to stay behind. Yeah, okay, yeah, right. Like those guys are turning up field, ball is snapped, they get a full speed takeoff on the flat-footed defender. We see Mike McDaniel does it over there in Miami with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think you could do similar things like that with Matthew Golden with his speed. Texas did that against Georgia. You know what I mean? Widen the guy out, get that full speed, track or takeoff for Matthew Golden, and then he can really break at the release point. Or once he gets up on their toes, I think pairing those three together is really good. I think they still have Noah Fant at tight end. This is at the end of the day, like they do need to. This is an offensive line class that may you still be able to get. I think like Tate Ratledge on day 2 and Dylan Fairchild. There's some solid plug and play interior offensive linemen that you can feel good about on 3rd, 4th round, day 2, stuff like that. Getting Matthew Golden, you got to make sure you put Sam Darnold in the best position, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to get the before Minnesota Vikings Sam Darnold. They want the Minnesota Vikings Sam Darnold, and the only way you do that is by making sure you protect him and you give him another piece at the receiving spot. So I like that fit. I like that fit a lot. It's one that 18 is going to be a toss-up. I think that's what it could be an offensive lineman. But if one of these receivers fall, I mean, heck, you just got rid of two of your long-term guys that were there. Why not? You know what I mean? I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, I look at underrated, those kind of sleeper pairings for me, Keith.
I got one. That? And this is another one we probably haven't seen yet, and it's just how the board fell again. Omari and Hampton to the Washington Commanders. I like that one looking at that a lot, because you talk about how do you defend them now, right? And you think about this can be very similar to what we seen with Lamar Jackson having Derrick Henry behind him, right? And how you're talking about immediately being one of the best rushing teams in NFL because of just all of the different things that you can do from an RPO standpoint, right? And you can literally get back there and run triple option. And you add in the Deebo Samuel, right, when healthy, his ability to do jet motion stuff. Like that stuff is going to be so confusing, and teams are going to have to be so disciplined. And you always say with elusive guys, right? Just guys, period, that you want to tackle in bunches. Well, when you have the linebacker has to account for Omari and Hampton thumping in between the middle, right? Deebo Samuel running jet motion, then who is going to be accountable? How do you have 2-3 guys for Jaden Daniels, right? That puts him in a lot of one-on-one situations. So I think you're filling a void by adding a young running back that's explosive, right? He ran a 4.47, I believe, at the combine, and also has really good production. But you're also helping out the quarterback because it's another set of eyes that somebody has to pay attention to Omari and Hampton. He's going to draw a lot of attention too.
Yeah, I mean 6 foot, 220, 4.46 in the 40. He's an explosive guy, 38-inch vert, 10-10 broad. Like he's physical, he's strong, and that to me, he checks all those boxes and putting them with, because I think we both probably agree that Brian Robinson is not a really good fit for what the Commanders rushing attack wants to do. Like it's just not a great fit. I think Omari and Hampton could give them what Cliff Kingsbury had in James Conner, just way more explosiveness as a runner downhill. Same type of physicality, that contact balance. He's going to run through your face. He's going to be very difficult to tackle. And when you got to key in on, we can't crash the backside in because Jaden Daniels over there who runs probably sub 4.4. Like we don't want to have that guy break around the edge. Yeah, like that, you get some favorable boxes, and the fact that they can throw the ball all over the yard. Jaden Daniels can hit every blade of grass on the field. He's accurate. He's got enough arm to target all the areas. Yeah, and Cliff Kingsbury running that zone read, that mesh point. I think he's a much better, especially if there's a seam. Like if there's a seam, he's hitting it. And once he breaks through the teeth of the defense, now you're asking corners and safeties with 6 foot 220, running 4.4 full speed upfield. Like that is a very that is we've DP, seen those business decisions are made.
You took the words right out of my mouth, DP. I was calling it business decisions, baby.
Business decisions are made, Keith. Like somebody got to cash that check. Like, listen, I got mouths to feed. I'm not taking this hit head on.
If
You
I
know
get
what I
hurt
mean?
this week, then I don't get paid next week, baby.
I
gotta
don't get
play.
paid, baby. I can't do it. You know, so I like that. I like that fit a lot, and it's one that, and it's not like it's not a pick that doesn't make sense because I think Washington's one of those teams that could absolutely be a sneaky landing spot for a running back in round one. Like truthfully, like they could be a very sneaky because they don't have a ton of needs. You know what I mean? Like you got the most important position filled. Your offensive line is fine. You know what I mean? I think you could throw some depth pieces in there later on in the draft. Could you go wide receiver again? Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed if somebody fall that was high on your board. You take a receiver, sure, that's fine with me. But truthfully, like running back is a really big need for them because I'm not a big fan of Brian Robinson in this offense. So in my underrated fit, and Keith, I'm gonna say this, man. We do this crap every year. We do this every year. Like, oh, this guy's a headache. This guy's got these problems. Then he falls to the Eagles. And then we're like, how do we let that happen? Oh my God. Like, no, like stop doing that. It drives me nuts. Like every time we sit here and let these good teams, the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, teams of that ilk who are championship contenders, get guys like James Pearce Jr. Like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? A guy that's been one of the highest pressure rates in college football in 2024, had 8 sacks on the season, high pass rush win rate. Like, yeah, like he's one of my favorite pure edge rushers in this class. And I think this is a guy you get at 32. That is a locker room that is solidified, that has leadership at all positions, has a strong-minded head coach, a strong-minded GM, ownership is strong, they're champions. You'd be a fool to walk in there and cause problems. Like you'd be an absolute. I'm not. No. James Pearce Jr. falls to 32. Yeah, the Eagles are going to run that card up. They're going to make that selection. They go get this guy. Now they have their other fastball to pair with Nolan Smith to replace what they just lost in Josh Sweat. And yeah, then we're again like they're getting after whoever's the quarterback in the Super Bowl with just 4, and people are upset about it. And it was like, well, you had the chance to prevent this from happening.
100%. Well, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where it was my mock draft. Go to the Draft Network, go check it out, comment. Let me know how y'all feel about it. You might like the picks, you might don't, right? But that's why we say, man, we like to talk. Y'all talk to us. This is Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available, guys. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.